The title of this talk is Creating Critical Contemporary Anti-Semitism Studies, Breaking a Taboo. Those of us who study contemporary anti-Semitism and engage in the struggle of fighting against anti-Semitism are often dismissed as racist, supporters of apartheid, fascists, reactionaries, Trump-supporting thugs. The list goes on. It's the professors of African studies, of all people, who remember me as a young anti-apartheid activist. I was the head of the African National Congress Solidarity Committee of Canada and in the UK, and I worked with the leadership of the ANC as a kid. And it's these scholars who remember that I'm not a fascist and I'm not an apartheid-supporting racist. That the struggle against apartheid then and now is significant. The struggle against hatred and demonizing the other is a struggle that continues tragically. And it's these friends and colleagues and comrades, if I may, that have allowed me to enter this institution. When those of us struggling against contemporary anti-Semitism need help and support, there's a few people who remember that when the Europeans sit in front of you and denigrate Jews, remember that when you leave the room, they're going to denigrate you.
The professor has a relationship with her or his content, right? Therein, we're looking at expertise and connection to expertise. That's a fundamental for us. But then also, she or he has a relationship with students, so that you have the multi-directional aspect of, well, what is my relationship to students? In high school, it works sometimes differently from college, because very often high school students have different motivations than college students. College students have generally elected to be enrolled in college, generally. High school students have to be there. And so it's interesting, and sometimes high school students will say, I'm not going to do his homework. I don't like him. We, as the educators, also must make sure that we are applying the critical thinking skills as we explore and analyze their critical thinking skills. For instance, my mother might be a very, very good source if your mother happens to have written the encyclopedia. My mother told me is a very reliable source if we inquire. So we have to inquire.
Teaching and scholarship must go hand in hand. You cannot be, in my view, a good teacher at the university level if you're not in some ways engaged with your scholarship. But a piece of our research must inform what we teach. You do that field research. You learn the language. You learn the subtleties of the culture. You get to know the place. You know the teachers who live in the place, who teach in the place, who know the religion. And that's when you begin to do that, you have a subtle, nuanced understanding of what's really going on. We have a moral responsibilities as teachers, quite frankly, to do that when we teach. I'm trying to suggest here that rather than think about religion, rather than think about Christianity or Islam or Judaism, can we seriously engage matters of contextualization? What is the context in which certain things take place? Matters more.
There is no racial category in the social sciences. What there is are translations from American English. And the racial categories in the United States have never been stable. They have changed over time. And they do not begin in 1776. They begin with the end, in the 19th century, they really begin with the end of slavery. This is something that younger people do not know and often are not taught. And this is something which faculty members who are in their 40s also often have not been taught. Therefore, they don't teach it. Therefore, we have an idea in the United States that race is somehow real, inherent in the body. So the current debate in American Jewish circles in particular, and the forward in particular of the particular, the current debate over whether Jews are white is itself a problematic. There's a discussion about white Jews versus black Jews, Jews of color. This is a definitive problem also in conceptualizing how you put together a course on anti-Semitism. The point of departure, your point of departure and your vocabulary. If there's a discussion of white Jews and Jews of color, some vocabulary needs to be removed from the classroom. And how do you do that? Well, it's the choice of texts that you compile. If you compile texts which are going to reinforce an idea, then the idea is reinforced. What are Jews? Who are Jews? Where do Jews come from? How do your students think about Jews? How do you think about Jews? If you're thinking of it only in terms of social science categories, you are already stuck in a quandary. Well, maybe the existence of Jews are the precise juxtaposition, the opposition, in fact, to social science categories. Jews are the group to be used to challenge the way that social science categories function, and therefore the way that they are researched.